Good day everyone. By the way, my name is Manilin Suazo, a secondary student of Bachelor of Science in Criminology. So today, I am going to discuss my chosen topic, which is nationalism and patriotism. What is nationalism? From the word nationalism, it is an ideology and movement defined by promoting the interest of a particular nation, in particular with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself, free from outside intervention, that a nation is a natural and ideal political basis, and that the nation is the only legitimate source of political authority. It also aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion, politics, and belief in a distinctive shared history, and to promote national unity or solidarity. Nationalism, therefore, seeks to preserve and encourage a nation's traditional culture, and cultural revivals have been connected all nationalist movements. It also fosters pride in domestic accomplishments and is strongly associated with patriotism. Nationalism is often paired with other ideologies, for instance, conservatism or socialism. So, there are types of nationalism. 14 types. Nationalism can be expressed along civil, ethnic, cultural, religious, or ideological lines. These self-definitions of countries are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism. Although these categories are not mutually exclusive, and many nationalist movements combine to differing degrees some or all of these components. First is ethnic nationalism or ethno-nationalism. The country is described from prior generations in terms of ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of a shared culture among group members and generally a shared language. The nation's membership is hereditary. The state derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic group's homeland and from its obligation to safeguard the partially domestic group and as a group to promote its family and social life. In contrast to Western opinions of a country defined by its geographic territory, theorist Anthony D. Smith utilizes the word ethnic nationalism for non-Western notions of nationalism. The word ethno-nationalism is usually used only in relation to nationalists who support an explicit ideology along these lines. The more generic word is ethnic nationalism and is used by nationalists who hold such views in an informal, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. The pejorative type of both is ethnocentric nationalism or tribal nationalism. Although tribal nationalism may have a non pejorative significance, when debating African, Native American, or other nationalisms that publicly claim a tribal identity. Second is civic nationalism or civil nationalism. The state derives political legitimacy from its citizens' active involvement and the extent to which it reflects the will of the individuals. Civic nationalism lies within the traditions of rationalism and liberalism, but it is contrasted with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. Civic nation membership is regarded to be voluntary. The growth of representative democracy is in nations such as the United States and France was affected by civil national values. State nationalism, often coupled with ethnic nationalism, is a version of civic nationalism. It means that the country is a common community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and that there is the person to contribute to that objective. The country is supposed to be a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and where the person exists expressly in the society to contribute to that objective. This often results in fascism, generally characterized by authoritarianism and nationalism. Fascism is a political ideology. Next is expansionist nationalism. It is a radical form of imperialism that includes independent, patriotic feelings with a faith in expansionism, generally through military aggression. The word was coined in the late 19th century as European powers indulged in the scramble for Africa in the name of domestic glory, but was most closely linked with militarist governments in the 20th century, including fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, the Japanese Empire, and the Balkan nations of Albania, Great Albania, Bulgaria or Greater Bulgaria, Croatia or Greater Croatia, and Hungary. Nations are not believed to be equivalent to their right to self determination. Some countries are believed to possess features or qualities that make them superior to others. Therefore, expansionist nationalism argues the right of the state to expand its boundaries at the cost of its neighbors. Next is romantic nationalism. It is otherwise known as organic nationalism and identity nationalism. Is the form of ethnic nationalism in which the state derives political legitimacy as a result and expression of the nation's cultural. It is based on the presence of a historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal. It expresses Romanticism's values and opposes the rationalism of Enlightenment. A historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal was emphasized by romantic nationalism. Folklore involved as a romantic nationalist notion. Next is cultural nationalism. The country is described by shared culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is an instance of cultural nationalism, partially due to China's many national minorities. Membership is a nation is neither completely voluntary nor hereditary. However, a traditional culture can be more readily integrated into the lives of any person, particularly if the person can obtain his or her abilities at an early point of his or her own lives. Cultural nationalism has been defined as a variety of non-civil or ethnic nationalism. Next is third world nationalism. Nationalist feelings are the outcome of opposition to colonial rule to survive and maintain a domestic identity. Next is liberal nationalism. It is a kind of nationalism lately defended by political philosophers who think that a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values of liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can exist. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful, in, independent life, people need a national identity, and those liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. Liberal nationalists often defend the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need a domestic identity to lead meaningful, independent life, and that liberal democratic politics need domestic identity to work correctly. Next is religious nationalism. Nationalism connections to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity and the mutual bond between the nation's people. This connection can be divided into two dimensions: religious politicization and religious converse effects on politics. In the former aspect, it can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity, a common a common bond between the nation's people, the support of a national identity comparable to a shared ethnicity, language, or culture is another political element of religion. More ideological is the impact of religion on politics, where present interpretations of religious concepts inspire political activism and action. For instance, legislation are enacted to encourage stricter religious adherence. Next is pan-nationalism. Ethnic or cultural nationalism refers to a country that is itself a cluster of associated ethnic and cultural communities. Next is diaspora nationalism. Diaspora is an ethnic population residing outside their traditional homelands. In this type of nationalism, there is a nationalist sense. Example, the Irish in the United States, the Jews in the United States and elsewhere. Next is stateless nationalism. On nationalist basis, the an ethnic or cultural minority within a nation state aims independence. Next is national conservatism, a political term mainly used in Europe to describe a version of conservatism that focuses more on domestic interests than conventional conservatism, while not being unduly nationalist or pursuing a far-right agenda. Revolutionary nationalism. Revolutionary nationalism is an ideological theory that calls for a domestic group united by a shared sense of intent and destiny, also known as radical nationalism. Next is left wing nationalism. Left wing nationalism, also sometimes referred to as socialist nationalism, relates to any political movement combining left wing or socialism with nationalism. So let's go on to patriotism. So, what is patriotism? Patriotism or national pride is a sense of love, dedication, and attachment to a country and alliance with other people who share the same expression. This attachment can be a mixture of many distinct emotions, including ethnic, cultural, political, or historical elements related to one's own country. It is predominant virtue linked to a nation's love, with greater emphasis on values and beliefs. Kinds of patriotism. There are three kinds of patriotism. First is patriotism of duty, patriotism of affection, patriotism of manners. What is patriotism of duty? This includes fidelity to one's nations through material acts. This is military service, patriotism, and other selfless sacrifices types. This is where patriotism becomes embodied and its ideals take praiseworthy particular actions. Patriotism of affection. This is a patriotism of the heart. It is about one's internal desire for his country's well-being. The patriotism of affection can be seen in the patriotism of duty, but it does not necessarily result in it. One can truly love his country and yet be a coward, just as one can theoretically fulfill a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country's welfare. Patriotism of manners. This is customs patriotism written and unwritten. The patriotism of manners is to place one's hand over the heart during the national anthem. It can be performed by any without actually needing affection or duty patriotism. While the above types of patriotism show, at least in part, the real beliefs and hopes of a person, the patriotism of manners establishes mostly a set of protocols. So, there are four types of patriotism: personal patriotism, official patriotism, symbolic patriotism, and peacetime patriotism. Personal patriotism is emotional and voluntary. The patriot adheres to certain patriotic values such as respect for the flag or the honoring of veterans. Other expressions of personal patriotism includes enlisting in the army, public service, and participation in the political process through voting or other forms of activism. Official patriotism, promoted by the government, which has a high symbolic and ceremonial content. It is a logical consequence of the state itself, which derives legitimacy from being the expression of the common good of the political community. Symbolic patriotism in wartime is intended to raise morale. in turn contributing to the war effort, cannot be so peacetime patriotism cannot be so easily linked to a measurable gain for the state, but the patriot does not see it as inferior. So that was nationalism and patriotism, their characteristics, their types, or their differences. Thank you so much and God bless.